Good evening. Welcome to the October 26, 2021 meeting of the Dover School Committee. My name is Sarah Gutierrez-Dunn, and I call this meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. We are pleased to hold this open meeting in person at Chickering this evening and are also making it available via DSCTV live stream for those who wish to view remotely. Please note that this meeting is also being recorded. I want to extend a warm welcome to Jeff Cassidy, our newest member of the Dover School Committee. Jeff was appointed last week by the Board of Selectmen on the recommendation of the committee, and we are very grateful to Jeff for volunteering to serve in this important role for our school community. First on our agenda this evening is community comments. I thought perhaps before I read some of the required language, I would check to see if there are any community comments this evening. And I will note that we have provided a Zoom link for those who might wish to make a comment, but for whom it is not possible or preferred to attend in person this evening. Do we have any attendees on the Zoom? It doesn't appear so. Any community comments in this room? All right, then moving on. I'd like to welcome our PTO President, Goli Saper, to present regarding the PTO's plans for this year. Thanks so much, Goli, for being with us this evening.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me this evening. Excuse me. I'm hoping that I'm not blocking you.
No, no.
Okay. All right. I really appreciate the opportunity of being here to present an overview of what we are doing in the PTO this year. First, I would like to share with you a list of our board members and also to share with you exciting news that from this year, we're going to have a teacher liaison on our board. Mrs. Atkinson volunteered to be our teacher liaison this year, and she attends our monthly meetings, and also she meets with our board members as needed. So all the PTO activities are to support three goals, and to provide support for our teachers, to provide support for community, and also support our students. How do we support our teachers? Through a couple of channels. First one is our discretionary funds. Every year, we provide up to $250 fund for each of our educators to reimburse them for the classroom supplies and items they need for their classrooms. An email with the form for this reimbursement fund has been shared with our teachers, and throughout the year we will remind our teachers of this fund, and we hope that most of our educators use this fund. Another way of supporting our teachers is through our teacher grants. Every year, PTO provides up to $5,000 for programs to enhance our classrooms. And this enhancement is in connection with improvement plans of the school for the year. This year, we are preparing the letter to go out. We are hoping that we're going to be able to share it with our teachers within the next few days. And after receiving these letters, we will discuss the request and decide to award these grants. To give you a couple of examples, last year, this grant was spent for purchasing portable whiteboards, to purchase document readers, and also outdoor benches, yoga mats, to basically support our virtual classrooms and possibility of using our outdoor spaces throughout the year. Other ways of supporting our teachers is through showing our appreciation by providing monthly lunches, occasional coffees, snacks, and also decorating the classroom doors and showing our appreciation for our teachers. Another important role that PTO plays for supporting our teachers is through helping to find classroom parents and supporting throughout the year these classroom parents. The way PTO tries to support community, one of the ways is through community events. Unfortunately, last year, a lot of our events were canceled. due to pandemic, but this year we are hoping to be able to have as many as events possible, but we are gonna be monitoring the guidelines and make sure that we are in compliance. Our first event is our International Night, which is planned to be happening on November 9th. We have our SOX drive that I'm gonna explain a little bit more shortly. Our Spelling Bee, third year Spelling Bee will be happening in January. Books from the Heart, which is basically a program that through community, we replenish our library, school library. Trivia Night is planned to happen in March, and we are hoping to collaborate with other community members such as Council on Aging to have this fun event. Science Fair is planned to happen in March, and Bike Safety Day, we are hoping to have it in May. This year we're going to have our auction, and I will explain a little bit more shortly. Our 5th grade graduation is planned to be on June 2nd, and open board meeting is going to be on June 16th. Typically we have 2 open board meetings for PTO. One is in October that each of the board members will explain what they're doing, and the last open board meeting for PTO will be in June, and typically the upcoming president of PTO will give a review of the year past. One of the programs that we have for supporting community is called Chickering Growth, that falls under Community Outreach Program. This program was started right after pandemic, when the kids were not able to participate and have the outdoor classrooms. This program was basically providing growing kits for the families, so families can grow it all together and share it on Padlet to basically connect with each other during those tough days. We had a lot of positive feedback from this program. So this year we decided to continue having this program and basically make it stronger. Throughout the year we will have growing kits going home to the families and community members and teachers and staff. And we will have a similar program happening in the school and sharing all the progress together on the Padlet. The aim of this program is to help our children learn about caring for living objects and also teaching them patience and the love of gardening. Our latest program, which was Tulip Fall Program, just happened, and it was a nice program. A lot of families participated in purchasing tulip bulbs, and that provided our school with 3,000 tulip bulbs, which were planted all around Chickering with the help and collaboration of Council on Aging. So we have volunteers, seniors in the community to come to school and help with planting these bulbs. And I'm sure we are going to be all enjoying the beautiful flowers in spring. Another community outreach program is Chickering Cares. This program evolved from another program which was limited to 4th and 5th grades called Make a Difference Club. And now it's expanded to all the school grades from kindergarten to 5th grade. And these programs are basically to raise awareness about the needs around us and foster kindness, generosity, and understanding of the needs of people around us in the community for our students. Each month we're going to have a different program. A program that is running right now is SOX Drive for service members deployed. And we are collecting boot sock, and also we are collecting letters. When you're walking down, if you take a look in the lobby, there's a big red mailbox that is provided for these letters. Another community program is our Medco Program. We have 9 kids from Boston in Chickering, and through PTO we want to provide support. We want to foster friendship and help our children from Boston to have friends here. in Dover, and also by providing play dates, scheduling play dates. We already had 2 play dates, and we received a lot of good feedbacks from Boston and Dover families from these play dates. One of the main programs of PTO, which supports the students, is our curriculum enrichment program. We have a robust program provided for all grades, and these programs are based on the recommendation from our teachers. Last year, a lot of the programs were canceled due to pandemic. Some of them was changed into a virtual platform. But this year we have a full program. Some of the programs are new, but we have a lot of popular programs from the past. None of these programs can be done without the help of volunteers. We have strong volunteer involvement for community, and we are grateful for that. Our hospitality team provides us help with monthly care packages and also lunches and occasional coffee. Our volunteer services help our room parents to make the communication between our families and teachers stronger. We have new family welcome team that help the families new in the community to find friends, to find local resources. We were able to have play dates for new families at the beginning of the year. Our volunteer services also help with Teacher Appreciation Week, a door decoration to show our appreciation for the teachers. And also whenever we have an event, our volunteer services help with finding volunteers throughout the community. Each year, PTO main fundraising is by alternating check writing campaign and auction. This year is our auction year, and we are planning to have it in Silverwood Farm in Sherborne, and the date is May 2nd. Throughout the year, we have other...
I just noticed the slide said May 20th. I don't know.
What's that?
I think the slide said May 20th.
Yes, May 20th, sorry.
Thank you. No problem. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yep.
Throughout the year, we have other sources of fundraising, such as our online directory, throughout Amazon Smile, and also we just had a gear sale. The way we communicate with our families is mainly through our monthly newsletter, our e-blasts, and also through posts on our Facebook page. Now I would like to give you a financial overview. This is a summary of what happened last year. So last year, if you look at the budgeted income versus actual, our actual income was much higher. And the reason for that was generosity from community. We were able to raise a lot of money through check writing campaign. And if you compare the expenses from the budgeted versus actual, our expenses were lower. And the main reason for that was cancellation of a lot of our CE programs. That brought our net operating income from budgeted of around 34K to net operating income of around 14K. We can also look at the expense allocation, and you can see that CE program, which was budgeted for around 30K, was around 17K. Our events also was less than what we budgeted for, and that's also because of cancellation of our events. So that brings us to this year budget, and we are expecting to have around $89,250 of income, and a net income expected from auction is expected to be around $54,000, and the total expenses expected is around $105,000, and that's typical for an auction year because our fundraising expenses are high during that year. And the allocation of expenses are similar to other years. However, our CE allocation is a little higher than a usual year because now a lot of programs' prices have been raised after COVID. This is a chart showing allocation of our expenses, and as you can see, the blue part is the curriculum enrichment program, which is around 38% of our budget. Our teacher support is around 23%, and our hospitality PTO administration is around 7%. Fundraising expense is around 20%. Chickering community is around 4%, and Chickering events is around 8%. And that's what I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
Sure.
Goalie. This is really so wonderful to see. So grateful to you for your leadership of the PTO, to the other members of the board, and to the parents who volunteer their time. It's very clear that you have pivoted and reinvented, and all without missing a beat in creating really special opportunities for our school community. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We have a great team with the PTO, and also the parents volunteering and community support and leadership of school recommendations. We are trying our best to provide the best as we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do other committee members have comments or questions for Goalie?
Just a quick comment. I also want to
Sure.
say thank you. I just feel that what I've experienced here at Chickering and professionally, the PTO adds so much to the school sense of unity, and just having those special events that everyone partakes in, regardless of what grade or classroom teacher they may have. And secondly, I just wanted to note, the auction is a great event in the past. I'm excited that's coming back, as well as International
Thank
Night.
you. We're
These are
all
my
very
favorites.
excited.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say thank you, and I really appreciate the expansion of the community service program
Thank
to
you.
extend to all of the grades in the school. I like the monthly. We're participating, and my kids are getting into it, so I appreciate having that opportunity before 5th grade. And I love all the plantings. I think it's
Thank
really
you.
enriching for everybody.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you so much, Goalie.
Sure, thank
We
you.
appreciate it. All right, so next up on our agenda, Superintendent Kathleen Smith.
Thank you. So as Beth is getting the PowerPoint ready, I think I said this in Sherburne and meant it, and I'm going to say the same thing here. This is a really tough act to follow.
Yes.
So again, being new to your community, and again, just reiterating everything that has been said. It tells a lot about a school when you see parents and community and your council on aging, coming together to support the needs, especially, during this challenging time. So I am very excited to be part of your community, and truly thank you on behalf of the district for everything you're doing. So this evening, let me just wait a minute. Well, the first thing while Beth is doing this, I want to talk about is actually one of my goals is to visit as many classrooms as I can in the district. And I will tell you, when I first came on board, I thought, okay, let's get school up and going. I'll spend the month of October, and I think it's just predictive of what's happening right now for superintendents throughout the Commonwealth, and really throughout probably our country. Is the best part of your day is getting out and getting in the schools and not dealing with all of the things that are happening as we try to make sure our kids have a return to school as much as we can, bringing things back to pre-COVID conditions. So I again had the good fortune of coming here last Thursday. I want to thank Dr. Reineman. When I come, she is always available. And I will tell you, I start out in her office. We're really kind of doing an update on, some of the concerns, what's happening in the school, how we can support, the practice. And very quickly, there was a knock on the door, and it said, Dr. Reineman, Superintendent Smith, there are teachers waiting. And I can't tell you, and here's what I'm going to say is, one of the things I talked about where I am so new in coming into a building is trying to set aside a little bit of time in order for teachers or staff members to come in, meet the superintendent, talk a little bit about what's happening in the school. And I thank you because I know you did say to teachers, if you have the time, and their time is very valuable, could you stop in? So I ended up with about 7 teachers. I think on the first slide, you'll see a couple that were left people. It was interesting because, again, teachers are teaching, staff members are working, but they came in, excellent conversations. It makes me, again, feel a little bit more in depth as far as my knowledge, and they're very truthful. They're truthful about things they've heard or things they want to ask questions about. So many things are affecting their practice, but again, very positive. So you see I'm scheduling these visits. I'm trying to attend as many school events as I can. We had an opportunity, I was mentioning, I think, at the joint meeting of the National Honor Society. I'm excited to be invited to watch your band perform at the middle school level. So these are things that, again, were done in a very different way. So to even have these opportunities in person for these events, so please invite me.
Sure.
I'll be pleased to come to as many things as I can and to meet the community. I'm also excited to meet with student groups. So obviously, in my practice previously, I spent quite a bit of time. I came from a very large high school in Brockton, 4,200 students. And I made an effort every month to meet with probably 20, 25 students. And clearly, it, again, was some of the most important information I had in order to support, what was happening for students in the schools. They are our customers. That's customer service. So that is my plan. I'm going to be meeting with different groups of your students. I know those meetings are on my agenda, but I have to tell you before I go on, is last night I had the opportunity to be on, I have to say this right, so it's the NPR station WBUR. So it's on the campus of Boston University, and I had taken a part in a panel last spring about what it was like during COVID. I shared the stage with last year. It was actually a Zoom meeting. A kindergarten teacher from Boston, I believe it was a teacher from New Bedford, a teacher from Framingham, and an administrator, a principal last year in the Boston Public Schools. So last night, and I hope you get an opportunity, I haven't seen it play back. We were in a beautiful space called City Space, which I think was renovated. They haven't even had a chance to use it. We had probably 4 to 6 people in this beautiful audience. You could look onto Commonwealth Ave. You could see the people walking by, while we were doing the panel. So I have to tell you the last question, and this brings me to my Chickering visit. So they were asking about silver linings and, what are we taking away from the pandemic? And earlier I had talked about the wonderful presentation by our assistant superintendent to open school. But I did talk about when they talked about things that you wanted to make sure you don't lose sight of. And I said, well, you know what? I said, now I hope you get to watch it. I said, these are for my second graders at the Chickering School. I said, when I walked into their classroom, and of course the principal introduces and says to them, this is our superintendent. And they all kind of look at her and, she's the big deal. This is the principal. So she explains as only she could. She said, this is the person that if we have snow and the weather, she would call a snow day. Well, now they were very interested. And you had to hear them tell me all the reasons why they were lobbying to make sure I understood how important that snow day was. So I told the full audience of NPR that the students from Chickering, and I assured them on radio that I can't wait to call a snow day here. So I hope I'm not jinxing myself.
I know, right?
I know.
Just wait.
So the next slide, please. So you'll see some of the pictures. What a beautiful day this was, to be into the classes, to see the kids engaged, again, in collaboration. Over here you see the kids. This is their mask break. So I loved, they were sitting on towels, little blankets. It was just priceless to watch. They were socializing, enjoying their snacks. Actually, they weren't too happy about the sun. The sun was in their eyes. So it was, it's just, again, so rewarding. It's a large school. And like I said, I'm trying to get into about 10 classes at a time as I go through the district. So again, and it was funny when I was showing these pictures to my executive team, and right away I have to say, Dawn said, oh, those are the new rugs in the music room.
Music rooms, yeah, if you want to take a peek on your way out.
Really, I wasn't so focused. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful room. I was really focused on how well-resourced it was and how excited the music teacher was to be able to bring back the love and the opportunity
I'll have to say a lot of those special instruments were the PTO grants. The drums, like over the years, that has been a huge support for the music program.
Yeah, I really loved seeing, again, I can't say it enough about the district. I understand the opportunities here, but to make sure that kids are able to, when you talk about your challenge success and looking at measures, you know, it isn't all about a test. It is all about opportunities for kids to enjoy the things that you want them to enjoy. So again, these are my little visits with the kids, and I want you to pay attention to, again, the masks. I struggle. Right now, I am a talker, as you can tell. I know you've all said that at one point or another. But the point is, it's difficult. And when I watch your teachers, you know, some of them are using the microphones really to, you know, be able to make sure the kids are hearing. But again, kids are paying attention. Kids are learning. You know, very little, you might hear the struggle. I'm not seeing the struggle. The kids are able to, you know, certainly operate in the classroom, as I said, work collaboratively. And again, this group at the end was my snow group. So the group, I think that was the group up against, is it the group up against? Okay. So I want to make sure they know I shared their message widely. Sorry, next page. Okay. So let me go to the, and I'm saying this because I want to really congratulate or applaud, maybe that's a better way to say it, to the school committee. We have had many meetings because of many things that are happening where we've had to bring joint meetings together to talk about mask mandates, to talk about vaccines, to talk about ways that we were going to open school. And I will tell you, and I want to thank every parent out there that is working with us. I know this is not easy, but when I look at the time that the school committee is committing to coming together, so not only during when you see them at meetings like this, but we have had a number of opportunities, and I'm putting this down because with our locals, we met on October 7th from 5 to 8. We did an overview of roles and responsibility of school committee members, superintendent. We're reviewing our operating protocols, our norms for how we govern, how we communicate, and how we improve our practices. So these meetings went, when I say 5 to 8, it was actually beyond 8 o'clock by the time I think we left that evening, and I think we still had a lot of questions. We had an additional training on October 13th, looking at open meeting law, public records requests, to make sure as a public body, we are adhering to the expectations legally of making sure we're as transparent as we can possibly be. So I'm just reaching out today because we have a follow-up to our October 7th meeting to not only look at selecting now our norms and our protocols. So Jeff, you're coming on at a good time.
Yeah. Right.
We're also going to be looking at priorities and goals, especially when you have an interim superintendent. It is really very different than your role, which is very important when you select your permanent superintendent as far as the evaluation process that is expected. So I'm really pleased to meet with you. I know we've got a few dates in November we're trying to grab, and I know it's a busy month because many of you are involved in your superintendent search process. You know, but hopefully we can fit this in so that we can start to move some of the work that I'm clearly seeing at the district level and are already starting to move on, but need to work with the school committee. And we also are going to be setting up ongoing training. So when you work with MASC, Mass Association for School Committees, we happen to have Dorothy Presser, a longtime former, I think, school committee member in Linfield, chair, and now is a field representative. She is willing to come out. One of the courses that you take as a school committee member is charting the course. You have a number of new school committee members, and one of the comments made was it was difficult to do the modules on Zoom. And I think when we saw these trainings we did, it makes a big difference when we're in person, can ask those questions in a community group. So Dorothy is willing to come to our district and actually in person have a charting the course. So we'll have to see when you take a breath, you know, as to when we schedule that. It might, I can't believe Thanksgiving is around the corner, and you know what happens after that. So it might be very early in the new year, but we will make sure that, again, as you go forward, that we have opportunities for these trainings. And again, the last thing, most importantly, is hiring and evaluating your superintendent. And I want to get to some other things here, my staff, so let me just quickly, you do have as a district a vaccine mandate. I feel very privileged to be part of a health and hygiene advisory that was started last year under Dr. Keogh and his team. You have, again, some of the best doctors that are knowledgeable I will hear something during our advisory, and I hear it on the news that evening or the next day. You know, things that are coming. They're very much on top of, as you can imagine, research. You know, they are some of the decision makers. So we work, they understand the role of the school committee. They make decisions for your community, and sometimes there are mandates. And when you looked at, again, that vaccine mandate, and I'll go into a little more detail afterwards, but we had a timeline. Our staff had to let us know their status by October 8th. We've been very busy with limited staff collecting all of this information. Your staff, again, was very cooperative and collaborative and worked with us, because that's telling you also that your staff sees this as an important measure to be able to, and the commissioner said this today, we keep saying it, as I hear it with the boards of health, I hear it with our school committee, and certainly as your superintendent, we want to keep our kids in-person learning, keep them healthy, safe, and that is our goal this year. So we did have, again, exemptions for medical or religious. Under medical, we are working with, again, doctors have submitted documentation. And as far as religious exemptions, we're working with our legal teams. And we do have testing requirements and procedures. You had very few staff members that might have been in the process. So during that time, until people are fully vaccinated, we are offering, or anyone that was granted an exemption, we are offering or mandating actually testing. So they would be part of your pooled testing each week until they are either fully vaccinated or if it is a member that was granted an exemption. We are, as far as guests of the district, they are not subject to this mandate, but they must follow all mitigation strategies that are outlined in your, such as your face covering policy. Next, please. So again, I want you to just see the numbers. I don't have to really read through this. This was the process of the past 3 weeks. A lot of labor went into this. So out of your 400 staff members that have responded, 403 are fully or partially vaccinated or have an appointment, and you see your exemption status in there. So I've really just explained this, but I see that as, again, a real testament to we continue to work together as a community to keep our kids safe. And I want to thank the school community. And next, I'm going to turn this over. Can I just say one thing before I turn it over to our assistant superintendent? So hot off the press, you've probably all seen it. We were called to a Zoom meeting with the Commissioner of Education today, just after noontime. What he shared with us immediately was the extension of the mask mandate will go through January 15th. I think some of the concern is you have the holidays coming up. We feel very safe in our own communities when you look at the vaccination rates or the transmission rates, which are trending downward. But again, for our little children who we're hopeful by the end of November, there will be an opportunities for families to make a decision about a vaccination that could be available for our 5 to 11-year-olds. So it's that next thing to kind of move us forward. So I believe in understanding the commissioner gives us a little bit of time to move in that direction. Mm-hmm. What I want to say to you is at the joint meeting, we do have an opportunity, as do, I guess there are 20 districts that have put in for filling out an attestation form that talks about reaching this 80% vaccination rate. So at your high school, your staff and your students, that's grades 9 through 12, have just over 88% fully vaccinated. So you are beyond the 80%. I put in the attestation form. I have had communication with the commissioner. That doesn't mean masks are coming off. It means we qualify to be considered and to have that conversation. If in fact there was a decision and a recommendation from your boards of health, and you as school committee members, decide, and the region of course oversees our high school, decide to move forward on that, we will provide plenty of opportunities for, again, communicating with our community, our teachers, our parents. I don't think we're quite there yet, but that did happen today, the extension of the mask mandates, which would affect our elementary schools through January 15th. So any questions, Madam Chair?
Any questions from the committee members? No. Thank you so much, Kathy.
I have one quick question.
Yes,
sorry.
Please.
Those who applied for the exemptions, when should they hear back? if they're approved or
Yeah,
not.
they have heard back. There's also been an opportunity, if it was denied, to meet with the superintendent. And we're providing, the numbers are very low, but we're providing support. As of November 1st, though, again, if there are members, they would be placed on unpaid administrative leave. And we will work very closely with them. We are hopeful, again, we can retain all our staff, but again, you can see the numbers here.
Yep.
I mean, I think it speaks for itself.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Appreciate that that update, and I know it's fast moving, and there are a lot of folks that are working hard on all of these pieces to the puzzle and keeping kids in safe, and so we appreciate your leadership in that regard, and look forward to continued partnership.
And I can't thank your nurses enough, led by Nurse Supervisor Jill Fedor, and Kate McCarthy has been a blessing on my executive team with really working very closely with me.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So a few updates about teaching and learning. The first is just to share that our elementary leaders continue to meet on a monthly basis, and it's certainly one of the highlights of my month. So that's Dr. Reineman, Jim Carnes, Dr. Brown, and Ms. Gollingsrud from Pine Hill, Kate McCarthy, our Director of Student Services, and Naomi O'Brien, who oversees the elementary special education. We come together, and it's really a great opportunity to talk about curriculum. So at this point in time, we're both schools are using everyday math. Both schools have adopted the Lucy Calkins units of reading, which, by the way, I got to do 3 days of professional development with Lucy herself last week, which was super exciting. I was taking screenshots of Lucy next to me in the squares. And we also talk about budgeting for next year and what our goals and aspirations are. So I really find that it's a great opportunity for the schools to share best practices, make sure that we're providing opportunities for our kids to be fully prepared as they enter the middle school coming from both sides of the river. The Panorama Dashboard, I think you've probably heard about once or twice. That is a dashboard that pulls information from multiple sources. So it'll pull information such as grades, attendance, disciplinary records from our student information system, but it'll also pull benchmark data around literacy and math from Dibbles or Foundus and Pinnell. So instead of our teachers having to go to multiple places with multiple logins and say, oh, here's Sarah's literacy information, here's Sarah's attendance, it's all in one place. So we can look at a child holistically, we can look at a class holistically, a school holistically, and it's K through 12. So it also provides an opportunity for those transitional years to make sure that whatever interventions the child might get in 5th grade, whether it's literacy support or lunch bunch, when that child moves up to the middle school, those teachers can see that, maybe this child needs a little extra help in reading or socialization. So what I'd like to propose is at a future meeting, we do an overview of Panorama and really give you insight into what that looks like for your consideration. I've been attending all 4 faculty meetings at the schools, talking about the changes to the evaluation system, which I presented to the Joint School Committee. They voted on it last week. Overwhelmingly, they're in favor of the proposal. So I believe you'll be voting on that as Joint School Committee to officially adopt the changes. And then the equity audit, similar to the presentation you had last week at the Joint School Committee meeting, Sarah McAllister from NYU has done presentations to each of the 4 faculties today, this afternoon at Chickering. Last but not least, a plug: if you know any friends, neighbors, cousins, grandparents who'd be willing to substitute in any of the 4 buildings, please send them our way. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question about the substitute teachers. I get it's like a really hard time to find people. That being said, are we competitive with neighboring towns in terms of paying subs? Because I know at my school that's like a major concern, and we're talking about upping our pay because obviously you need subs.
So we did just put an increase through over 20% on both our daily sub and then our long-term sub rate. So we were sort of reacting. We actually had those rates queued up last year, but then last year turned out to be a different year, so we held back. So it actually really helped us there this year because it was very rewarding for, we actually have a pretty good pool of substitutes and a couple regulars in some of the schools, so it was a great boost for them to see the increase. And I think we're signing, I just reviewed the region's payroll today and saw at least 2 or 3 new names that I hadn't seen before. So the list is definitely getting longer. So I think that boost that we did actually was definitely beneficial.
But we still need more.
Yeah.
Not long enough yet.
Yeah. One idea I heard today, which was interesting, I never heard it before, is if a sub commits to like 50 days in a district, if they've subbed for 50 days, they get like a $1,000 bonus at the end. So it gives an incentive for someone to stay with the district and a familiar face in the buildings. And that is $20 extra per day over that time period. But I never heard of that idea before. And it just seems like a great way to not only attract subs, but also retain the quality subs that you'd like to have.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. Thank you.
And Mark, that being said, they become familiar with your district.
Exactly.
So they're familiar with the protocols, the students in there. Yeah.
Better outcomes in the kids.
Great.
Okay, so that's it. Dr. Reinman, are you presenting?
I'm not sure yet if I have to or not. I think I can go from here.
You're doing it.
I don't think I need to.
Okay, so I can shut it down. Oh, great.
Good evening.
All right.
Welcome back to the building. I forget what a treat it is until I hear Joe coming in, and we're back in the library, and we're here. I'm so glad that you are. We have the blessing of being in every day with your children, and it's a fabulous, fabulous experience and opportunity. We're grateful. Masks are not an issue, other than the occasional nose. It's usually just a matter of tightening up our ears a little bit. The teachers, as Kathy had said, are using the headsets quite a bit when they need to. We've managed some great tricks for attention getting and clapping so that there's very little yelling, surprisingly, through any of the masks, so it's a great chance. I provided my report in which I talked about how this year is harder in some ways than last year, and I never thought I would say that because I was quite sure last year was the hardest year we ever went through. It's different. It's just a different year. We came back, we left in June, and I was the first one waving the banner, whoopee, we'll be back in September, it will be all the same, and it's not. So there's a lot of catching up to do. We're seeing our students struggle with being back in. It's a lot of social and emotional challenges on top of the academic, which you would expect. It is consistent across the district. It is consistent across the state. And many of the teacher blogs that people follow talk about it just everywhere. It's a tough step. We talk about our second grade. I think Beth talked about them at our opening. Second graders are that grade that only had like 6 months of school, right? Because they're kindergarten, they got till March. First grade, they had their remote or their hybrid year. It was school, but it wasn't the same. We were sitting in rows, so we weren't practicing sharing. We weren't practicing how to line up nicely, right? We all had 6 feet between us. So a lot of the things that we're dealing with now are things that you can sort of roll back to everyone for kindergarten. Right, that favorite poster that you had, everything I needed to know I learned in kindergarten. We're all doing a lot of kindergarten. And we're doing some amazing things, right? So it's a mix of things. I think I wrote in my, I'm sorry, my slides were in Kathy's presentation.
Yes. Yeah, we figured you do
I
it.
forgot that I had these 2 slides and, can you put it back up?
Yeah.
Sorry.
They were blank when I just looked.
They were?
Yeah. So I took them out because they were blank.
Slides in here. Never mind then. We'll go
Yeah,
from there. So you probably also saw the press release from U.S. News and World Report. And if you want me to do a buzz through MCAS scores, I am prepared to do that. I just need to put on my laptop. And then in our slides, I talked about what is October in the elementary school. It's settling into the routines. The honeymoon's over. We're doing a lot of assessments. And from assessments, we're building win blocks, what I need blocks. We'll talk about more in a second. A ton of curriculum enrichment. When Goldie had her slide up, I hope you noticed how small the font was for all the curriculum enrichment. There's so much that we do. We're so lucky to have. And so much of it's back in person. Our Wampanoag visitor was in last week. And it was just like having you here. It's like, oh, they're all back. Yay. October is also parent-teacher conferences. And our sock drive with letters for the soldiers. The items that we're gathering from our school will be sent to a central location, and they're building care packages. So our socks will go into care packages with our letters and then be shipped. So I'm very excited for that. That replaces the candy drive. Please resist the temptation to send your extra candy in. I know it was a great way to do that, but nope. And of course, October's Halloween. Elementary school, it's Halloween, we're buzzing already this week. We're going to have our kindergarten parade. Another tradition that we weren't able, well, we did last year in the rain around the basketball court. We did it. It was a tough one, but we did it. So this year we're going to have our Halloween parade. If the weather cooperates, the kids are going to go around the building. We're going to invite our parents to be out front so we can recreate Halloween parade. If it rains, we're going to squish you all in the cafeteria and walk around 100 times. But we'll get our parade in. So that is October. I highlighted in my second slide, which is in the digital Ethernet, about what I need blocks. So we have brought forward something like what I need in various forms here before, if you've been to school committee meetings over the last 10 years. It has really taken root thanks to the collaboration with Pine Hill, collaboration with Jen Ryan, who is the literacy specialist at Pine Hill, with Priscilla Stefan here, and a committee of teachers from Chickering that worked together the last 4 years doing professional development about interventions. Add on, and a silver lining, the pandemic, coming back, everyone needs something, right? Whether you need remediation or enrichment, we all need something. So when Mr. Carnes built the schedule this year, we were very careful to set in immediately dedicated times for what I need blocks. So there's no question they're set. So 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade have 2 times a week for 30 minutes or 40 minutes, and then the lower grades have 4 times a week or 3 times a week for lesser times over the week. During those times, students are broken into groups and receive what support they might need, but it's all based on the assessments that we did at the end of September. So it might be that Sarah needs some phonemic awareness help, Dawn needs some math facts. and those are 2 from my class. There are several from Goldie's class that need the same. So there'd be a group that is here working on this piece. There's another group here. There are some kids who are independent reading. There's another small group that has an enrichment project going. They're all taught by classroom teachers, educational assistants, special educators, special education assistants. It's a magical time. 4th and 5th grade were buzzing around today as they're swapping, and the kids were coming out in the hall. They had their Chromebooks under their arms. They had their math kits, whatever they're doing, and off they went. So big step, a lot of planning. And then we go through the cycle, 6 to 8 weeks, do another data dive, see what we did, reshuffle, reorganize, lather, rinse, repeat. And those groups can be academic, social, or emotional groups. We also sometimes push in our special ed services at that time, because it makes sense. So they're busy, busy times. And I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Colleen?
Sure, I'm just curious if you use the dashboard that you were describing. Do you use that to help inform the WIN blocks and the WIN, what they need?
We will when Panorama's fully up and running and everyone's trained in it. So we've trained at our leadership level, and then we're working into it.
Okay.
So absolutely, it'll make it a lot easier.
Great, yeah.
Thank you. We're excited to see.
Yeah.
Just because this is my thing about the wind blocks here.
Yeah.
So you run it for the 6 weeks. Is there progress monitoring happening throughout? And then you're using that obviously to inform staying in the group, moving out of the group, if the intervention's working, et cetera?
Absolutely.
Is it are they research based, or is it what kind of the teacher thinks?
It is all research based, using everything from Lexia to IXL and Fontes and Pinnell as reading assessments, the Dibbles assessment as well. The math, we don't have as formal an assessment system yet. That's where Lindsay Weiner's doing some amazing work for us. She's their math coach across both schools. And we're looking for a better, more quantitative way to assess. Everyday Math is a great and challenging math program, but doesn't provide a clear 8 out of 10 in math facts. Right? It does a lot of other things, but not that as well.
And then
We're gonna
just,
wind up using
sorry.
Excel for that.
just so that, because I'm hoping to learn something here, is there a way, like through this Panorama Dashboard, can that data collected in those groups be shared there so that classroom teachers who aren't doing that can see how their
Yeah.
students are? Wow,
Yeah,
that's great.
Absolutely. So this afternoon, Leslie Campbell, who's our SEL coach, was here, and she was after school inputting her groups into Panorama. So she's one of our leaders in launching Panorama and loading them in. And every week she's required to stop in and give some sort of an update into the system. Otherwise, it looks like she did nothing,
Right.
and an alert goes up. So it's kind of forces you to keep your bookkeeping in line as well.
Yeah, awesome.
And what's really great is Leslie goes across both schools as the SEL specialist. Lindsay goes across both schools as the math specialist. Jen and Priscilla work very closely together as the literacy specialists. So the way that data is being inputted and interventions are being inputted is the same at both elementary schools.
That's also really great because it can be a really isolating job. So it's nice to be able to see what other people are doing so you can collect best practices and bring them back. That's really nice that they can collaborate that way.
The questions? Deb, I have a couple questions. You mentioned, the struggles that a lot of students are having with some of those kindergarten skills. I'm wondering if you can speak to the ways that the teachers and others at the school are helping to address those concerns. Perhaps it's informal, correction that's being offered in the classroom, and perhaps it's more formal than that. But I'm wondering if you can just sort of speak to how we're rising to meet student need in that area, given that it's perhaps a bit more pronounced than we've seen before.
Sure, thank you. So a great avenue for that is our morning meeting. So every classroom has a morning meeting where the students come together. There's a routine of morning meetings where you have a greeting, and then there's often an activity or a game, and then a lesson within it. And it's a great time to talk about expected behaviors, good school listening looks. So you can have a whole class reminder. We're all sitting on the rug. Everyone is sitting on the edge of the rug. Your bum is on the border of the rug. Your feet are in front of you. No, Kathy, come on up. Here we go. And we go through. Or I love how Liz is sitting with just her good school listening look, right? So you use the whole class pieces. There's always the ever famous redo, which is something we've used here for a number of times if we're going out to the bus and we seem to run over the speed bump that was Dr. Reineman. We then are invited to redo the walkings so that we remember how to go about that. And we don't have to explain. Mark, please redo. And Mark knows. Mark usually knows why, right? And he's just excited because he wants to get the back seat in the bus. And you lost it, so now you're doing nothing, right?
You got it.
The other more formal piece that we've done is brought back principal chats. So after lunch, there's this great opportunity when the kids come out and they line up to go back to their class as we bring them out on the pad in the nice weather and have them all sit down. And then Mr. Carnes and I can have a principal's chat with them. So we can say, we are so proud of the way second graders all picked up their lunch today. And you were helpful with Mr. Steve picking up the trash off the floor. Thank you so much. Now we'd like to review expected bathroom behaviors. I don't swing on the door at the bathroom at home. I don't swing on the door in the bathroom here. Would you also like to join me in that? So we have opportunities to reward the behaviors and the improvements we've seen and then do all reminders. And then of course there's always small group intervention. Come with me.
That's great. Thank you. And you mentioned MCAS. I know there's been a lot of news coverage regarding test scores across the state perhaps being lower than they've been in the past, which is not unexpected given the pandemic. But it may not be the time for a deep dive, but I'm wondering if you can give us kind of some key takeaways, understanding that a test is but one measure of student achievement, but what is that data telling us about Chickering students and how are we addressing it?
Sure. The MCAS data was a surprise this year in that our students did overall about as well as they've done in the past. Wow. And I have I can show you the sort of an overview, if you don't mind. I'll try to set up at the same time. The MCAS was interesting this year. It was a shortened test. So instead of having 2 days of ELA, we had 1 day. Same for math, same for science. The tests were shorter. So instead of having 44 questions, they were 22. the interesting way is they took the test, took the class, and broke them in half so that half the grade got the first 14 questions, and then the other half got the second half, and they only released the first half. So even when we get ready to do our deep dives, we can go in again and see just half the test. That's not unusual, but it's just interesting how they happen to randomly divide the groups up for that piece of it. They did not change the standards of the test. So last year when we went through and said we're going to the power standards, the MCAS didn't change. The MCAS stayed at the original ones. So it set our students up to not do as well, right? As the case may be. So what I did, that's pretty cool. Nope, all right. Oh, please. Okay, 1 second. So what we do when we get all of our MCAS data is first Mr. Carnes and I go through and do a review. We then provide copies to all of our teachers, which our teachers have. And so they're reviewing, and next week we're meeting to go through and dive in with them. And we look at we look at several pieces. We look at how individual students have performed. So how did my class from last year do? Right, there's that piece of it. And then we look at the curriculum piece of it that says, isn't that interesting? 60% of our third graders missed this question. What's the question? And if it's a released one, you can go and look at it. All right, so for example, one of the ones that our third graders missed, you can't see the actual text, but it says these words, ferocious and verificus were in quotes. Why were they in quotes? And so the students then would presumably find that in the text and then pick from 4 choices. Because it was dialogue, because it was someone's favorite words, because it was a direct quote from an original resource. And most of our kids picked, it was dialogue, because quotation marks mean dialogue. But in fact, it was because it was a quote from another resource. Okay, right? So that's the sort of curriculum dive you do as well. The interesting piece here, let's see if we can do this here. Okay, so we will do that strengths and weakness and curriculum review, the deep dive for next step, school committee meeting. So if you look at our third graders in ELA, this is 2018, 2019, there was no MCAS in 2020, and then 2021. The left column in all of them is exceeding expectations, which is blue. The green is meeting expectations. The orange is partially meeting expectations, and the not meeting expectations is red on the right. There's our swoop. 23% of our third graders exceeded expectations on MCAS.
Is that in comparison to other students? Like, is it relative, or is it like a particular benchmark score?
This is a great stats lesson. So if you take the raw data for MCAS data across the state, it is scaled and skewed so that 500 is the middle score, and then sort of bell curved, not exactly, I can do more next time, about how we decide on the scores. So the midpoint or passing every year is different. The standards are always the same. The questions are different. The moving target. Right, so it's an interesting piece. It's a great stats class. But it also shows that most of our students met the expectations that you would expect, even given the year. So this is our current 4th grade, right? So then if we look at our 4th grade in ELA, there's our curve, 2018, 2019, 2021, same order. If there are 100 students in the grade, 1% represents 1 student. Our classes are 80, 90, a little bit under 100 students. Right. So there's our swoop. I'm getting the Nike ad here pretty soon. Here's our 5th grade swoop. Right? Interesting, right? Lots to think about there. So here's math in 3rd grade. Same layout every time. Right, again. The reasons you could be in not meeting expectations also includes anyone who opts out of MCAS. So as soon as you opt your family out, they immediately count in that category. There's our 4th grade.
How much is that swing and how many people opted out?
Right,
So
yeah.
that seems like a pretty important.
It's not a large number,
Oh, it's not.
right? Because if it
1%.
were 1% so in this example, 1% of 4th graders in the math test last year didn't meet expectations. So it either could have been they did poorly on the test, or they opted out, or they were an alt.
Okay.
And MCAS alt also puts you in that category. So there's your 5th grade. You know, so there's always work to do, right? The whole goal is to get everyone to exceed expectations, right? So there's always work to move left, if you will. And then interestingly, for the school that really didn't teach science last year, I think our work as science teachers, Beth, might be over. So
It's all in where you set those cutoffs.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how you can make data do anything you want it to.
right, 1 or 2 questions either way could make a big difference.
Yeah.
So a super flyby, and in no way meant to disregard the results, but at least gives you a feel about what we're looking at. There's something to learn in there. There's some interesting pieces. I don't expect there's any great revelations that we haven't had before.
Great. That being said, I know you're like being realistic and sort of downplaying it, but you should be really proud of this because not many schools are putting up a slide that looks like this. It's really fortunate.
It is.
And it's obviously due to a lot of thoughtful hard work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, the big takeaway that I have from this data is, what a fantastic job Chickering teachers did last year in the face of so much change and so much adversity, and our students too, to cope with all of the things that they needed to cope with last year, switching from remote to in-person, and to do it with such success and such resilience is something that all families should be proud of.
And I feel like I can say, because I wasn't on the school committee, but it also really speaks to the decisions you guys made because our kids were in school a lot more than the rest of the state, and that matters. So thanks for getting them back.
I'll add one thing to that though too. It was great that we got everybody back, but even for those who didn't, we had the Chickering remote schoolhouse,
Thank you. I was
which
just gonna do that,
both
yeah.
my children participated in, and it was amazing what those teachers were able to do virtually. So.
Yeah.
Our remote academy gets a lot of credit. Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. But I think it goes back to what Kathy started with, right? It's the community, right? There's a lot of people that pitch in to make it happen, so.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else have questions or comments for Deb?
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Deb.
Certainly,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you. My pleasure.
All right, so Dawn, it looks like we have the warrant report next.
Yes, so you have all of your warrants approved since the beginning of fiscal year 22 because we used September as sort of the wrap up of fiscal year 21. So that's why your list looks a little lengthy. I again always thank Mark for going to Nancy's, the town hall's request and signing the warrants. If you ever have any questions about them, any new members, again, just let me know and I can give you a quick tutorial on what a warrant looks like and how the expenses are processed.
Great. Are we ready to move on to the financial report? Please go ahead.
Certainly
Thanks,
do that. So tonight you have your first financial report for fiscal year 22. It's just in time for us to start the fiscal year 23 budget. So we snuck that one in. And as you know, because we've been communicating with you throughout the summer, we actually did see a lot of staff increases here at Chickering. And what I tried to do in the report was break them into two categories. One was based on enrollment, which we might have had regardless of the pandemic. And then the second set was those additional supports that we put in place because of the pandemic and trying to give additional supports to the students. And you've heard a lot about those tonight with the math and SEL specialists that were added. And in addition, that we've sort of have strengthened our SEL with increasing the BCBA support here. We're not sharing that individual with the region. They are 100% here. And we've added a couple extra educational assistants, both to support the new specialists, but also to support the increase in enrollment. I'll also, one thing I didn't have in the report, but I think we had communicated additionally over the summer and maybe into the early fall, was regarding enrollment. We added the two sections, but with that we also added some small increases to some of your specialists, being the FLES and the PE. So that's all in the number that I provided for you. So right now we're looking at a net increase in your operating budget of about $240,000 for those two components put together. We're going to let sort of the dust settle, make sure we have everything recorded, because we do have some shared staff. And then we will start looking at the other grants and the opportunities for us to move some of those expenses out of the operating budget into some of our special ed grants and also our ESSER grants. So we're going to just not do that yet, let the dust settle, see what we can absorb in your budget, and only move what we need to. Any questions on sort of the salaries, because that was a big piece? Questions on the staffing or?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I asked about substitute teachers.
Mm-hmm.
The EAs are different.
Mm-hmm.
Are we competitive with the towns around us in terms of paying them? Because I feel like we have an extra challenge because we're such a small district. There's not always like if you do a really good job, you might get a job here. Do you know what I mean?
I will say that's not true.
Okay.
I think that we're very attractive because if you look at our new teaching staff, I would say the majority ones that we hired are from our educational assistant pool. So at the elementary level, it's a great sort of feeder system for any open positions that we had. And in both elementaries, we've had quite a few over the last couple of years. So I do think that people know that out in the public and look at this as a great opportunity. Every 3 years, we negotiate their contract. We look at market rates and we come to terms with them as to where we need to be. And so that is definitely something that will be coming in. We'll start doing in the fall of 23. But part of that research is looking at market.
Yeah.
I think one of the huge benefits of educational assistance is it's a 10-month position. It's fully benefited. So you get your health care for the whole 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
And that alone is a huge expense for a lot of people. That comes with the position. Mm-hmm. So I think you have to look at more than just the salary. It's the work schedule that fits into a lot of people's lifestyle, and the fact that you get great benefits and it covers you for the whole year. You can go off and make additional money in the summer.
Is that benefit different for Dover Sherborne, or do other towns do
No, other towns
similar?
probably do similar. I will say we probably hire more. In our district, which isn't that large, we probably have almost 80 EAs. Yeah.
And oftentimes our substitutes become EAs who become teachers, which is why we're always looking for substitutes, because it's the kind of the system of the feeding.
Exactly. But that is coming, up. We've been doing a lot of, we had one of the largest pieces we negotiated last go around was that we had multiple tiers in the special education, which caused a lot of controversy.
Yeah.
So we were able to sort of bring that into one classification, which allows our special education administration so much more flexibility in how they use that staff.
Right.
Because if you were assigned to a one-to-one back in the day, you had one pay rate. If you were assigned to a small group, it was another pay rate. It became very confusing from a payroll perspective if you wanted to move staff around to better meet students' needs.
Right.
And so now they have a pool of special education EAs that they can use however they need to best serve the students at that time. So that was a huge, I think, movement for us. And with that, then they had a little bit of a higher cost of living in their contract than our other bargaining groups did because of sort of that concession of bringing that into one.
Right.
So there's a lot that goes into doing that. But I don't, the fact that we're basically fully staffed at that high level of EAs, I think is a testament to that people want to come here. It's a great school district to work for. So I don't think we're, because I know other counterparts who still have multiple openings in educational assistants. So I think it's a desirable place to come.
Yeah, and it's a hard position that it can be to retain. I mean, I watch my school struggle with that and trying to figure out.
And I think our philosophy on that, to be honest with you, is that it's a stepping ground. Hopefully it's the future educators, right? So they're coming in, they're getting the experience, and you might not have lifelong educational assistants. So we have a little bit of mix, but I think your perfect sort of scenario is a little bit of each. Right. So we're happy if our educational assistants get great experience here and then are able to go get a teaching job, right? Or come and take one of our teaching jobs. So I think we applaud that. I think that's sort of what we hope will happen for the majority of the staff that come through as educational assistants.
Right.
On the expenditures, there's not much to report today. We're still, new into the year. You will see a little bit of red on textbooks. That's because we've purchased a lot of new materials, both this year and last year, for the Readers Workshop. And I think we've used all the grant money we can. So there was a little bit more they wanted to do. So we put a little bit more into the operating budget. Your building maintenance contracts have all been encumbered, and most of the utilities. I always just like to highlight your oil price because that can make a big fluctuation in what our budget is or what our actual is based on what the tech bid comes in at. So it's a little higher than it was the year before, but we'll still probably see a little bit of a savings on that. Out of district is, we're still, we had a meeting yesterday actually, we're still finalizing some placements. I think the good news is I don't see us being in a negative position this year like we were last year. We've had some changes in placements, some coming back into district, some moving out of district. So we're waiting to put the whole story together, and hopefully we'll have that for you when we present the fiscal year 23 budget, because that'll be the base of what we budget for in 23. The great news is on circuit breaker is that it is fully funded at the 75% mandated rate. And I'm shocked and in amazement that they've also been able to fully fund the first part, phase one of the out-of-district transportation reimbursement. So they're going to phase that in, but for the first year, 25% of your eligible transportation cost will be reimbursed at 75%. If you know on your budget, we carry quite a large, our out-of-district transportation cost is more than our regular ed transportation costs. So the fact that we are now going to get reimbursement on that is actually a fabulous thing. We'll see how if they can make it up to the 100% of transportation being reimbursed. But this was a great start for the first year. And I think on transportation, I think Dover is slated to get, I think it was about maybe $80,000. So I have to take the region circuit breaker and break it out between Dover and Sherburne. I just got those numbers actually yesterday, but that's why I'll have better details for you on circuit breaker at your next meeting. But remember, you budget 100% of all your out-of-district costs, and the circuit breaker then is there to offset it, and that's why I showed at the bottom, because then that goes back to the town.
Sorry, just the new guy question on that one. That's funding from the state?
That's funding from the state.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll give you a tutorial at some point on how they calculate circuit breaker.
Okay.
It's taken me like 15 years, but I get it now. So don't worry if it seems like, the funniest thing is a member in Sherburne used to say when I was talking about circuit breaker and she was new and she didn't want to ask, she thought I was talking about like a circuit breaker box.
Right.
So,
Over and over again.
it's it's a fun thing. So any questions on just your financial statement, just on the status of that appropriations, and then you also had your first quarterly look at your special revenue and revolving funds. Not a whole lot to talk about there at this point in time. And if you ever have any questions on what the different funds are, always feel free just to let me know. And then I wanted to update everyone on just the ESSER grants briefly, sort of give you the synopsis. Remember, we have the 3. I sort of just, some of this you've heard before, but I just keep a running report for your refreshing memory. The ESSER 3 grant, since we last met, though, we have filed our application. We're still waiting to hear. I think there are so many new grants that I can't even imagine working on the grant side of DESE right now. And they're still sort of working from home, so it's hard to sometimes get a hold of them, but they have their hands full. So I think within the next week, I'm hoping we'll get our approval on our ESSER 3 grants. But I sort of summarized the buckets of money that we use that for. That can obviously change as our needs change. Again, this particular grant has a 3-year lifespan, so that we're eligible to use it up until September 30th of 2024. So there's no need to like rush and spend it all if we're still trying to figure out where we need support, what we need to do from the pandemic. So some of the work that the elementaries are doing now will probably give us some insight if there's a different direction that we need to take than what we think we're going to be doing right now. So we'll keep you updated on that. The other thing I have, and I feel like I'm just keep going on to new categories, is capital. So in your packet, you had your first draft of your fiscal year 23 capital, but I also wanted to just bring you up to date on our prior capital projects. When I wrote this report, I don't think I realized that we'd be in person. So I was like, hopefully you've been in, but now you've walked across the new floors, which every time I walk in, I just think they have made such a change in that lobby and just really has brightened it up. And we're so excited. We've been really more excited if we opened up the fall and we had all the floors done. But as everyone knows, materials were definitely hard to come by. So they scraped enough together so that we could just do the lobby. So we felt like we had some reason to wish for this all summer. The plan is, though, that the downstairs 2 hallways, the K1 and the 2-3, are scheduled to be done over Thanksgiving break. The beauty is that we have the November 29th PD Day, which the staff were probably not going to be here, at least the kids won't be here. So that gives them that extra Monday to finish it. And then over winter break, they'll do upstairs. So that is the plan. The other project that we had for 22 that sort of had a little hiccup was the cold water booster system. So you may not have remembered, but we were going to do an upgrade on that with just a variable drive. And that's a way to sort of make it energy efficient and just give it a second life. During the time frame, because we put it on hold during the pandemic year, that has become an unsupported upgrade that we were going to do, which means we had to go back to the drawing board and replace the whole system. So the upgrade is part of the funding that's already approved. You'll see in your new plan that we've added additional funding so that we can go ask capital for the additional amount we need to replace the whole system. So on that note, if you look at your 5-year plan, and we'll just really discuss the 23 projects for now. We had planned on doing all the common hallways and then wing by wing do the classrooms. And so we're still on schedule to do that. So we're looking to request the K1 wing be done next summer. And we have a placeholder of $75,000, which was a valid quote, but we'll definitely go back and tweak that quote before in the next month or two. We've been carrying so EMS stands for Energy Management System, software replacement upgrade. We've been carrying that for a couple of years because some of you may or may not remember, we are currently doing an upgrade at the region. And so the plan is to have a system for our director of facilities to be able to manage all of our schools on one system. So it's about a $400,000 project that we're doing at the region right now, fingers crossed. Chickering will be the next one to come on, and then Pine Hill will be the year after. So the number we have in here for you is actually a pretty good number that the firm we're working with has given us for Chickering. So we're looking to put that on for fiscal year 23. And then in addition, the cold water booster system that I just mentioned. The big project coming up that we did have in 23, but with additional work, we've moved it to 24, are the roof coverings here. Mm-hmm. We have had a consultant come in to all of our buildings actually in the district and do a study for us, both a visual and then the infrared scan, so that we know sort of our life, if we have damage, what we have to do. So there's quite, we have 2 different roof types here. I've learned a lot. And so we have some big decisions to make. So we need at least a year or so to sort of work through those, talk to the town about if we want to do solar. There's different methods that we can do on one of the rooftops. So we just need time to, and the good news is that we have time. And so we'll push that off for at least another year and see where we are then. So that was a big decision that we did over the summer to know that that's an opportunity for us to push it off and really research and figure out what we need to do. The other projects are really based on, and for new members too, we have a 20-year capital plan that was performed by, or done for us by an outside consultant called Onsite Insight. So we've had them refresh it once since the original one, I think it was in 2012. And so that's our roadmap. So it highlights to you basically the projects in the building that are, it tells you what the cost is and what the industry standard useful life is. So some things last longer, some things are, like our hot water heater a couple of years ago died earlier than it should have, but at least it gives you things to look at and start putting on a 5-year plan. Mm-hmm. So that's where that information comes from. The town's capital committee actually has an October, I think 12th date, but I always let them know that you have your meeting tonight. And so once you do your initial approval of this draft, we will submit it to the town's capital committee as they're accumulating the capital plans from all the departments. And then we hope to, once you identify who your building reps are going to be, have an individual meeting, give more information, and have, bring that person up to speed on some more of the details.
Mm-hmm. Okay, are there questions for Dawn regarding either the financial report or the capital plan?
Sorry, the only question I had on the EMS software, is there energy savings that will come of that? Like,
yeah, there should be.
Pay for itself over time?
Yes. How much is that's like one of those like hard things, but looking at just the level of operations that we'll be able to go down to as far as scheduling and such, there definitely is a smarter way to run the systems. We have an energy management system now, but now it's 20 years old. And so it just needs a software upgrade, but we're sort of revamping it even more than that.
Yeah.
Colleen?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the price of oil and how reliant we are on it and how much we're using. And I'm wondering, in terms of the energy audit we've talked about with the solar option, when you're choosing different materials or looking at the different materials, are you guys considering there's a lot of innovation in solar and in different kinds of tiles you can even use on the roof. I'm just curious if there's been an input from, or you're planning to, this is part of the plan of pushing it out to really do it.
To really see
exactly,
are we a candidate for solar? The town of Dover themselves, is a green community, community, and are really looking at solar seriously. So we will we will sort of partner with them and collaborate with them on what they've already done here in town. As you know, that's how we piggyback to retrofit this whole building into LED lights, was because that was the first year the town of Dover came on to be a green community, and their first grant was to retrofit lights in all town buildings. So we participated in that at the time. The same year you put the air conditioning in, we did the retrofitting of the lights. So I think that that's a priority for them.
Yeah.
That's been communicated to us, and we will definitely work. So we've engaged with a firm called Amoresco, and they came through and actually did an energy sustainability audit for us at the region. Piggybacked a little bit on the elementaries, but we had them really focus on the region because we knew we had this EMS system coming up, and also their roofs are even further a little bit. They're going to be done next summer, so we are looking at solar for that. We're not a good candidate at the region necessarily for rooftop solar, but we're going to look at maybe doing the carports, in the car in the parking lots. But that's could be a different case here and a different case at Pine Hill. Sherburne's the same way. They are a very active green community participant. So we'll be definitely looking at those opportunities for that. And then it would the solar panels here would definitely help offset your cost of the AC that we run. So we're looking at all of that. It's just part of everything you look at today for all the buildings. The same with the cold water booster system. The upgrade we were going to do is a variable drive motor versus the old fashioned that if you needed water, it just came on full. The variable drive knows what the need is and can run it at that level. So there's energy savings to that. So even with that project, we've been working with the town of Dover to apply for a green community grant for the cold water booster, the cold water system. The issue with the green, I'll tell you, with the green community grants, though, it's there was a filing in October, which we weren't quite ready for. The next one's February, and it takes like 4 or 5 months to hear. So if you're in a little bit of a rush to do something, you've got to plan pretty far in advance to sort of meet their schedule. So I think what I'd recommend is that we'll tell the town, let's allocate the cost, and so that we're ready to move in one way or the other. And if you get green community funding, it will just offset what they have to give us, which is what we've done with some projects in Sherburne.
Great.
So we're definitely very active. We've been participating with their town planner.
Thank you.
I feel like I should probably know this. Where do we get our water for the school?
So we get it from the town of Dover, which has wells here, but they sort of run them, and then we just sort of pay for usage.
There's one well that feeds a couple of houses and us.
Okay, other questions? I know this is an area, the capital plan, where we do need to take a vote tonight because the town has a deadline for this plan. So I'd like to invite a motion to approve the capital plan as presented.
Sure.
Colleen?
So moved.
Great. Second?
Ms. Grossman, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Great. Thank
Very
you.
good.
So we'll
Thank
move
you.
the first version along, knowing that we have until March to really sort of, do the final, but you're usually done by your January meeting, so that capital, because they're a much earlier schedule than the budget. So thank you, everyone.
Great. All right, so moving on to, do we have more on the budget guidance, Dawn, or?
So the budget guidance, so you had the enrollment in your packet, right? I meant to bring that up when we talked about the additional sections so that you can sort of see how that all played out. And one thing I just wanted to point out, so with your class size policy of 17 to 22, technically, if you look at grade 2, and that's just so for future when we're looking at sections, you have 88 in grade 2. That's one of those grades that we actually could have had 4, because 88 would have put you at your 22, but we had 5. So just keep that in mind as we start looking at projections for next year and sort of how this does play out. There's not a right answer. It can cross, and so I think when we're speaking with administration this summer, obviously with the pandemic that we just came out of, there was a desire to have a lower class size. So that's why we went ahead and added the 5th section to provide that extra support for the students. But technically you could have had 4 sections and been within your policy. So just, that's one of the, as you start learning these numbers and seeing how we analyze this, just something I wanted to highlight. So this is an opportunity, as I said, because your November meeting, we actually will be presenting, your baseline budget. And so if there was any particular concerns you had, I mean, some of them we've talked about, substitutes, EAs and such, that you want to bring forward so that as we're meeting with administration and our other members of the leadership start putting at least the initial budget together, we've taken into consideration. To give you an opportunity now versus like after it's already starting the process. So not everyone always has something, but we want to open it up there just in case.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Tonight I'm full of questions. The playground, where does that fall? Is that part of one of these capital budgets? How does the playground work? How old is it? How often do you look at that?
So the playground is, I will say, is predominantly a PTO funded synopsis. I mean, Deb and I have been here too long, but back in 2001 when Chickering opened, we really didn't have a playground.
Yeah.
And the summer after the first year, the PTO installed, I would say, 75% of what you see out there, with the initial padded flooring too, which we did just replace. Now it's been 2 years ago. 2 years ago. But that was fully funded by the PTO. A lot of the additions that you see out there are fully funded by the PTO, and there's 1 or 2 items out there from DSEF. So we look at that as sort of a collaborative. So when we went to do the flooring, we sort of shared it with PTO. We had some gift money, and then we had some operating money. So I think that's how we sort of look at the playground.
What's the life of a playground typically? Do you even know that? Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, yeah, so we've been replacing components of the playground. In fact, we finally did get a quote to replace those pads, so that's in the works. So things have been upgraded, but there's new things, there's been things taken out, so it's I would say there's hard to say, like, the way that we do it, it continues to be serving this purpose. We've replaced swings. The preschool playground is relatively new. The preschool playground now is probably about 8 years old. And again, that was funded through private sources. So I think some of the things outside the outdoor classroom was PTO funded. But we're collaborative partners in maintaining it, but we vet things that come in here. Well, again, Deb and I were sitting out there in the audience when the outdoor classroom was vetted, because the one thing you don't want to do as a school committee is accept a gift for something that you don't understand what the maintenance cost is going to be for you going forward. So part of the agreement was that the PTO was going to have costs in their budget always to maintain components of the outdoor classroom, which they've held true to. And I would say all of your landscaping out here, there wasn't a whole lot when the school was open. PTO has provided a lot of that. So that's
and the same as like the basketball court like thing over that way would be the PTO. Or
well, no, that's actually original from the
kind of weird leftover.
From the original
old
Chickering.
And then Park and Rec does all of our mowing and maintenance.
Right.
So it's kind of an interesting collection of lots of people in charge.
Exactly. So again, that's a collaborative too, where we meet with them, but they're predominantly responsible for the outside of the school.
Got it.
The grounds. Yeah. All good questions.
Yeah.
Other comments, questions? All right. I think that next up is the consent agenda, which we have minutes from our meetings of September 28th and October 18th. I'd like to invite a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mark Healy, so moved.
Thanks, Mark. Second?
Colleen Burt, second.
Any discussion? And Jeff, you can feel free, if you'd prefer, since you weren't a school committee member during these meetings, to abstain, but it's your choice. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, so we've approved the consent agenda. There are also communications attached for members' information, the Regional School Committee meeting minutes of September 14th and the Sherburne School Committee meeting minutes of September 21st. As Dawn mentioned, one of the items, the major items up for our November 23rd, 2021 meeting, which is our next regularly scheduled DSC meeting, is the look at next year's budget. And so I also wanted to invite, if committee members have other things that they'd like to see discussed or added to our agenda for that meeting. Any ideas? Concerns? One question that that Cheryl had actually reached out to me about, I don't know if there's any magic to this meeting being a morning meeting, and I know it may pose hardships for those of us who have day jobs. And so I just thought I would ask committee members, would you prefer to meet kind of in the evening? It's scheduled right now for 8:30 a.m. on November 23rd. That is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. We could move to evening if that's preferred.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the morning meeting started back when the Dover's budget was presented the third week of December. And so out of courtesy for the staff and everyone, we would meet in the morning. I told Cheryl that, like, now that we've moved it to November, we don't need to stick to that. It was a just December 22nd type decision.
Wow.
that we used to do, because it seemed weird to be out on December 22nd presenting a budget. So that's why that legacy comes from. But
But does that work for committee members and administration, that
Yeah.
6:30 p.m. on the 23rd?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we will plan on that. I think that is it for this evening's agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Okay.
All in favor? Excellent. Good evening, thank you.